¿Qué pasa? Antonio Serrano here, and today I have a magical character video just for you. In this case, we are talking about my all-time favorite movie director, as it is Quentin Tarantino. I love these guys. I don't know the amounts of time that I watch Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, The Hateful Eight, great Reservoir Dogs, great movies. I love them. I have watched these movies more times than I've seen some of my relatives, which is quite sad, but it is completely true. So I want to take out, extract, squeeze all of the tips that we can learn from this master to apply to our art, as it is magic. So without further ado, let's get started. Jungle Boogie, I got the boogie. Jungle Boogie, I got the boogie. Jungle Boogie, got the boogie. Jungle okay, the first tip that we can extract from this guy is that comedy is surprise. Surprise. You see that? Comedy is surprise. But you may think about Tarantino's work and you may think that surprise is like a shock, right? A shock. But it doesn't have to be that way. A lot of the times the comedy from Tarantino comes from surprise the other way around, like the absence of a shock. If you expect some kind of shock but there is no kind of shock, that's a surprise, right? Because it's like the opposite of your expectations, right? When someone gets shot accidentally in the face, that's quite funny because it is a shock. You are not expecting something and suddenly something happens. That's quite funny, of course. But if you are expecting something quite shocking to happen and nothing happens, it's quite normal, that's also funny, that's also a surprise. For example, in Pulp Fiction, when they are talking about the hamburgers. Oh, you know, the quarter pounder and then the royal with cheese, and they're like, oh my god, these guys are gangsters. These guys, their job is like killing people and scaring people, right? And they are talking about hamburgers and what they are going to do tonight. They ask him to go on a date with the boss's wife, and they are talking about quite normal things, which is funny because the absence of a shock creates the surprise because you are expecting something shocking, something interesting to happen, and they are quite normal guys talking about their everyday life. So comedy is surprise, and the surprise can come in the way of a shock or in the way of being normal when everybody is expecting the opposite. And this is a great tip for us as magicians, because I think that we may be the artists with the highest expectations in show business. Everyone is expecting to be mesmerized, everyone is expecting for us to show some doves, fire, like confetti, things like that. We have a lot of expectations when we go on stage. So knowing what the expectations are and playing against them is going to be funny just by itself. So I think that it is great to extract that tip from this master, as it is Quentin Tarantino. Let's take a look at the next tip. Obviously, we cannot talk about Quentin Tarantino and not mentioning script. Oh my god, these guys' scripts are unbelievable, simply unbelievable. And the great thing about Quentin Tarantino scripts is that most of these scenes, you can see that they are not like quite poetical. He's using difficult words. I am reading right now, let me show you, I am reading right now this book, right? 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a Nobel Award-winning author with this book. And when I'm reading that book, I am like, oh my god, these sentences are masterful, like very difficult words, quite weird words. I am constantly searching on my phone some words that I don't understand, and the book is in Spanish, quite important to mention that, and I don't understand some words. But in the case of Quentin Tarantino, most of the times you know the meaning of all of the words. You perfectly understand what he's talking about, but they are interesting. The scripts are compelling. You know what he's talking about and you can't get enough. It's like, I want to hear more about this stuff they are talking about. Even the food, when they start describing food, it's like the best food ever. And it's like, it's great. It's amazing. It's simply and utterly amazing how this guy can make me and everyone can make everyone that interest about something, and it looks like a simple conversation between friends. It is great. So I think that as magicians, we must learn a lot about script writing, right? And I think it is great to be able to have a script that looks like you are simply talking with people in a normal way, but people can't get enough of yourself. So this is a great tip that we can learn from this master. Let's go to the next one. Okay, this tip is a tip that I knew for a lot of times, and I've even worked about it. I have a lot of work done from this tip, and it is backstory. Backstory. I don't know if Quentin Tarantino admitted this or if it is simply like a belief that some people have, right? But the rumor says that Quentin Tarantino has a complete story for every character that you see in his films. But for most characters, he only shows you the part of the story that is interesting for the purpose of the film. But all of the characters that appear in in Tarantino's movies, they all have a complete story, right? That's why the characters are so attractive, are so interesting, because they are not there just to push the action of the protagonist forward. They all have a complete story, and that way the actors and the director knows how they should act, what their motivations are, and things like that. From this tip, I have like a document, a Word document in my computer with all of the characters that appear in my show. The first character, obviously, it's me, right? And I write there all of the pieces from my story that I tell in all of the shows that I have. If in a show I tell the story of something that happened to me when I was a kid, I write that in that document. So now I know that every time that I perform, I have to perform with that backstory in the back of my mind, right? That has to be there. Even if I am not performing that routine, that's part of my character. If I perform another routine talking about something that I want in the future, that goes in the document, right? And now I know that I have to perform knowing that this is a goal that I have. And it is obviously a goal that my character has. Most of them are false, are not true for me, but are true for my character on stage. And the cool thing is that in that same document, I do the same thing with the characters that I mentioned during the show. In my rope routine, I mentioned my uncle Ramon. So I created a whole story for my uncle Ramon based on the very little story, very short story that I tell during the routine. So now I have a whole story for my uncle Ramon, and I only tell people the part of the story that is interesting for the trick. But now the character is more complete, is more compelling. And the same thing with my grandma, that also appears in the rope routine, with all of the animals that I have. I have a rubber dove that I produce, Moho, the rubber chicken, Eco, the monkey, Rocky the raccoon, which I use, and I think that I'm going to let it out of the shows quite recently. I don't know when, but I think that that trick is going to stop for some time. But I have the story there. The dogs, I have a routine with dogs that are printed on silks, so I have the story of the dog. And most of the stories, the most part of the story is just for me, to know why is this animal in the show and what has this animal been through to be here with me performing magic. And it is great, and this is a tip that I learned 100% from Tarantino's films. So I advise you to do the same thing. If you don't want to do that with all of the characters that you mention in your show, okay, I know that I'm a little bit of a geek just because I did so. But you should do that with you. It's like every time that you speak about you, or that you tell some kind of story or something like that, you should add that to the story of your character. That way you can have a complete character. I remember a lot of the times when I performed shows that had no structure and no script, I remember that maybe in the first trick I said that I had no friends. I did like a routine with cards, like a lot of shuffles and things like that, and kind of a triumph routine. And I was like, do you know how you are able to do things like that? It's quite simple. You don't have friends. And then, like a couple of routines later, I do a trick and I was like, okay, I showed this to my friend, and my friend said to me that, and I remember performing in a hotel and a couple of kids yelling at the same time, but you had no friends. And I was like, why are they telling me that I had no friends? They knew the backstory of my character better than myself. And I was like, oh, that's right. I say at the beginning of the show that I have no friends. And now I am saying that I showed this to one of my friends implying that I have more, and it makes no sense. So I have to take a decision. My character has friends or my character doesn't have friends. What do I want to do, right? And that's basically the thing that you can do when you write down the different stories that your character tells on stage and how that affects the main image. Great lesson. Great lesson. Yeah. Okay guys, and this is the last tip that we are going to extract from this master as it is Quentin Tarantino, and it is do it for yourself. And this is something that 100% Quentin Tarantino said in a lot of interviews, and he says that he makes films for him to watch. He creates movies that he wants to watch. He says in an interview, everyone is invited. Everyone is invited. If you want to watch my films, you are more than welcome. But I make them for me, because I wanted to watch this stuff. So imagine what would be your magic show if it was the magic show that you would like to watch. Imagine that you go to a theater and there is a magician, or you go to a hotel, a cruise ship, and there is tonight magic show. You are sitting there in the theater of the cruise ship or anything like that, and close your eyes and think for a moment, what magic show would I like to see, right? You don't have to think about what tricks you can do or you cannot do. You don't have to think about the places where you normally perform, or you have to think about what is the show that I will love, the magic show that I will love to see. And now, once you have that idea in your mind, simply do it. You have to perform the magic show that you would like to see. Maybe your circumstances doesn't match perfectly with the show that you would like to do. Doesn't matter. Try to come around that. But do a magic show whose biggest fan is you. As simple as that. You must be your #1 fan. I know a lot of artists, not only magicians, a lot of artists that hate listening to themselves or watching themselves on tape, on video, performing. That's the worst thing that can happen. First, because if you don't watch yourself, you cannot take notes on what to make right, what to improve, and things like that, right? But secondly, if you are doing a good show, you are performing a good show, but you don't like watching yourself, that means that it is not a good show for you. I love watching my videos. There are a lot of videos that make me feel awkward, like I don't want to watch that because this is a very bad performance. But I have a lot of videos of me performing that when I feel bored, it's like, I want to see that. That was great. Everything worked out great. The music, the lighting, the audience, all the moves were completely flawless. I want to watch that video. And if that video, instead of being me, was another magician performing, I would love to see that video too. The fact that it is me doesn't make it worse or better. It's simply a magical performance that I love watching. And my goal is to have a show, a complete show that feels like that. A complete show where I go, I want to see this full show. This is something that happens to me with Beloved, with Tom Mollica, with Mac King, with Paul Daniels. I love watching those guys' shows over and over and over again. My goal is to have the same thing for me. Right now I have certain pieces that I love watching individually, and the goal is to have a full show with that same feeling. And Quentin Tarantino is the best at doing so. He creates like almost 3-hour films that he and everyone else loves watching because he's a true master of his art. So that's everything for today's videos, guys. I hope that you find this information useful. Please let me know in the comments, what do you think about Quentin Tarantino? Be careful because I love him. If you say, I don't think that Quentin Tarantino is that good, and I'm going to review and So guys, please subscribe, please comment, and I will see you, as always, in a near future. Bye there.